But the fact that people went to parliament and they were killed in parliament and the parliamentarians fled when the people came, it means that the elections we had basically on August 9th have been invalidated. Oh. So we can only way MPs like myself and others are staying in power is through the force of arms. The only way the president is staying in power is through the force of arms. The Gen Z do not have, it is not true that the Gen Z don't have a leader. The Gen Z have a leader in the name of the Constitution of Kenya, 2010. And they are pointing out that they implement this constitution. We want to be governed under a constitutional dispensation, not under the whims of men. But I have a very, very low opinion of Ruto. President Ruto is the kind of guy that if he looked into the mirror and the image he sees looking back at him, he will deny it's his image.
A very good day to you and welcome to Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. My name is Jadiel Kabiro. I'm excited to be here and to join you with these conversations which I genuinely do hope will help our political leaders in making better policy and political moves. Today, I'm at the office of Busia Senator Okiya Omtatah. So many people have sent me to say hi to him. So many of my Gen Z people are telling me to say hi to Mheshimiwa. Tell him we'll talk about the 6th. But Okiya Omtatah, how are you doing this particular day at your office?
Well, I'm fine, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah. We really do appreciate that you agreed under short notice so that we can have this conversation. You know, when we have this conversation on this platform, we just hope that we don't get to where we are. You know, we've had these conversations for a long time as a country. But unfortunately, this is where we are, Senator. This is where we are. First of all, talk to me about dialogue and a conversation about, you know, what the Azimio la Umoja coalition leader Raila Odinga is pushing for, vis-a-vis what the likes of the other faction, Kalonzo's faction, is talking about. Why talk? Young people don't want to talk about this issue that is causing restlessness in this country.
First of all, I would like to locate the struggle within my understanding of what really happens in this country. Kenya is a neocolonial state that was birthed sometime at the beginning of 1960s, late 1950s, 1960s. We get birthed as a self-governing unit, then as an independent republic. Now, within that republic, when I analyze our politics, I see very clear trends. When you look at the Mau Mau, which was the last push, organized push against the colonial empire, it never finished its business. It sort of got hijacked and compromised. And whatever they were trying to do, their mantra was not so much liberation. Their mantra was restitution. Okay. Because when you talk about Mau Mau, it's Mzungu, arudi Ulaya, Mwafrika apate uhuru.
Yes.
That never happened. Mzungu hakuondoka.
Even post-independence?
No, Mzungu hakuondoka. Mzungu alibadilisha rangi. Akapata Mzungu mweusi, akaingia pale. So, that Mau Mau drive never achieved its goal. It got subverted through the negotiations and what had happened, and then at the end of the day, a republic was born. And maybe it was premature, I don't know, but a republic was born. Then it has been managed through various ways, incubation and what have you. Now we get to a point whereby the question of power in the republic needs to be understood. So we end up in what I always use the analogy of a prison. Assume a situation where you have got a prison, where you've got two sets of populations. You have got the wardens, clearly distinct in their uniform, and they govern the prison. And you have got the prisoners who are inside this jail, who are locked up against their will. And they have got the jailers, or the wardens, who jail them, and it's their business. They make their money by jailing these people. Their life exists on jailing these people. So, among the jailers, there's usually an opportunity for them to choose the chief warden or the chief jailer. But who does the choosing? The choosing is given to the prisoners. So the jailers, when you look at the manifestos you see in this country of various parties, none of them goes far enough to offer the promise of the restitution, the emancipation that the Mau Mau fought, or the emancipation that is pronounced in our national anthem. If you look at our manifestos of political parties, none goes far enough. And if I go back to my knowledge of the prison, they seem to be saying, okay, you prisoners, if you elect me to be the chief warden, I will allow you more time in the sunshine, I'll fumigate your rooms, I will allow you Kojuko rights, I will give you better rations of food and stuff. But nobody says, I will break down the prison.
I'll liberate you.
Yeah, no, nobody says that. You remain prisoners, but I'll just improve your conditions within the prison. If you look at the manifestos of all political parties, that's what they offer Kenyans. None of them offers emancipation of the people. So, now what is happening, what has happened today, and now when you find these attempts to be, certain fights come up, when the population is agitated, and maybe there are some fights, the politicians realize that the prison, if they are not careful, there might be a jailbreak. The prisoners might escape and they'll have no prison.
Yes.
They'll have no livelihood. So they go back together. They regroup and they close ranks and say it doesn't matter who is the chief. What matters is that the prison stays intact. And so right now, the Gen Z, what the Gen Z are doing is within my analogy, is a prison, is a jailbreak. They are breaking out of this prison. They are saying that we cannot continue living in this prison. And they don't want anything about the wardens and whatever. So now the wardens are scared of that scenario. It's an existential threat to them. So the wardens are regrouping and closing ranks, and it doesn't matter who among them is the chief warden. So they now want to come and make sure that the Gen Z jailbreak is defeated.
Isn't the easiest option, say, Ruto to leave and say someone else comes and becomes the warden, in your analogy? Because Raila seems to be supporting Ruto despite the prisoners, as in your analogy, not wanting him in power. Wouldn't Raila find it fit to say, let me not support Ruto, but one of us can still...
No, but that will be opening up a fight among them. Their fight is no longer important. It's no longer an issue who is the chief warden. What they have right now is Ruto. And behind Ruto, they will rally to make sure that the emancipation of Kenyans is denied. So they will not address the questions of good governance. They will not address the question of whatever. They will want to share jobs. They will want to share opportunities, and they will not demand any accountability. Then they will say, okay, now we have what they are calling a government of national unity. The only way you can sustain that jailbreak, and for me the jailbreak was most demonstrated by the overrunning of parliament and taking out the mess from parliament to the street. So the people recalled the delegated authority. The people delegitimized parliament. So parliament right now and all the elected leaders have no legitimacy.
Without the mess.
Parliament's power is always the mess, but the fact that people went to parliament and they were killed in parliament and the parliamentarians fled when the people came, it means that the elections we had basically on August 9th have been invalidated. So the only way MPs like myself and others are staying in power is through the force of arms. The only way the president is staying in power is through the force of arms. They don't have the universal acceptance of the people. And so, for me, what is important is that the Gen Z question of who to negotiate, cannot be negotiated within the old mold. We need a constituent assembly to be formed and a transitional government, a caretaker government, which will then be in power maybe for 6 months or for 1 year, and then we reimagine the republic, because that storming of parliament basically extinguished what this government is all about.
So if you look at the President William Ruto, who seems to be giving in to some of the demands, from the finance bill to dissolve cabinet to removing the offices of the spouses, and then Kenyans are still on the street saying Ruto must go. Is this the easiest solution for the country?
All that the president has done has not addressed the question of governance. Doesn't address the question of governance.
Even
when he said that he's abolishing what the women's whatever, the issue of spouses officers.
Yes.
They have not been told to pay back the money they took. They don't have the basis to take the money in the first place. He has not gone back to address the question of a balanced budget. All he's saying, now that I will not get money from you, I'm going to borrow money from out there. Who gave him the money to go and borrow? You see?
Yeah.
So the issues that what the president is doing, people are not asking for a haircut. People want a new beginning. And all the president can do for him to save himself and his country, maybe to give us an ordered transition, is to arrive at a mechanism of a transitional government, not a government of national unity. Say, okay, I will, and my government will leave, but there are things that need to be done so that my exit is orderly. You see, it will take a statesman to do that.
Does that mean there is nothing he can do to save himself, redeem himself?
Other than the use, he can use force to govern. There are many countries that are governed by force, but the legitimate universal mandate is not there. It has been withdrawn. So the only thing is for the president to come up with a transitional mechanism, and the people agree on how long the transitional mechanism will be, whether they say it stays on up to 2027, but there has to be a transitional mechanism whereby one of the arrangements is that he will be disqualified, and all who serve in that transitional government will be disqualified from participating in elections. The next elections will elect a new government for a period of time, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, so that we also protect that transitional mechanism from opportunists. So that people go there saying, okay, we are not going there to build ourselves so that we can take power at the next election.
Yes.
We are going there to prepare for the next election, so that the next election now can bring in a kind of leadership that the people expect. Because people have seen that the duty bearers who represent the state have failed and have taken the action to peacefully eject them from the offices. And so to say that the same politicians are meeting to create a government of national unity, it's not the size of government that matters. It's not the actors in that government that's mattering.
Yes.
What is happening is that all the political elite has been found wanting.
All of them?
Yeah, have been found wanting. And even if you go to parliament, if you look at the parliament the people elected and the parliament that is there, there's no relationship. The people did not elect a majority on the side of Kenya Kwanza. The majority was on the side of Azimio. And so, when the current parliament has got a majority on the side of Kenya Kwanza, that majority is false. So Ruto has been ruling with a false majority. If those people who are elected in the various formations had stayed in their formations, then they would be representative of the aspirations of the people and they would be representing the people. But the moment they moved and altered the composition of parliament, they lost that legitimacy. They lost the power to represent. They were now representing themselves.
Yes.
Not the people elected.
You know, at the back of my mind, I'm thinking about the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua immediately after the protest on Tuesday, June 25th. They said, we were the darling of the people. Where did the rain start beating us? You have assessed the situation with Kenya Kwanza. You've looked at where we are now. Where did the rain start beating them? Where the UDA, yellow fever, was in the country, hustler nation in the country. What happened, Senator? What happened?
Well, for me, I think that what happened is that they rode a false wave. They deceived the Kenyans. And they deceived the Kenyans to a point whereby, and they mixed a mixture of, there was a mixture of fanaticism and whatever. So the Republic was sort of discretion, and the discretion of the Republic by Ruto and his group, which will include Rigathi and others, was fanatically used evangelical Christianity as an instrument in the service of that deceptive ideology of emancipation. Bottoms up is basically emancipation of the masses.
Yes.
That are going to get the masses from their current deprivation, yes, and give them a new beginning. That one is what the people are rejecting. And the people are saying, okay, you deceived us, but the way forward for us is fidelity, is service to the Republic and fidelity to the Republic through the rule of law, which is soundly anchored in the Constitution. The rule of law soundly anchored in the Constitution. We have got laws that are unconstitutional in this country. That's why it's very important that the laws that we use are anchored in the Constitution. The Public Order Act, for example, is an unconstitutional thing that the police keep on invoking. Yeah. So we need the rule of law soundly anchored in the Constitution. So ultimately, is to uphold, to defend, and promote the Constitution of Kenya. So when you find what happened when Rigathi and Ruto were elected, and all criminals walked free, that violated Chapter 6, where under Article 73, it says very clearly that a public office, you must bring honor to public office. So when you appoint suspects and people are known to be corrupt to be cabinet ministers, you deny those officers the honor they deserve. Yeah. So what went wrong is that Kenya Kwanza decided to form a government in their own likeness. They knew they were crooks, they were thugs, so they formed a government of thieves by thieves for thieves.
You're calling it on their own likeness.
Yeah, their own image. And that's what now Kenyans are saying, Allah, kumbe ilikuwa fisi imejificha kwa ngozi ya kondoo, is a hyena or a wolf in a sheepskin. So when Kenyans realized that Kenya Kwanza was a wolf in sheepskin, they took up arms to kill the wolf. And that's why they're on the streets and saying, no, this is not what we wanted. This is not what we voted for. Yeah. So for me, it is so Rigathi should not be surprised. Yeah. His own image, his image is not what Kenyans don't want. Image where you have got wealth, you can't explain. You have acquired this, you can't explain. That's what the Kenyans don't want.
Now you look at the Gen Z-led protests in the country, a lot of killings. According to records, 50. People assume maybe more. You look at how government is trying to deal with them, tried to ban. Court comes, says that order is unconstitutional. You can't ban people from going to the streets. Their reasoning was because we don't have a leader as Gen Z. They're trying to make gradual steps into dealing with this situation. How do you assess what government is trying to do? I
think basically what is happening is this. The Gen Z it is not true that the Gen Z don't have a leader. The Gen Z have a leader in the name of the Constitution of Kenya, 2010. And they are pointing out that they implement this constitution. We want to be governed under a constitutional dispensation, not under the whims of men. Yeah. So the leadership with the Gen Z is rule of law anchored in the constitution. So they may not have a biological leader, or they may have, but they have got a reference point they are referring to, and they are rallying everybody to say, okay, do what the law requires you to do. Yeah. So they know that we are not under a military rule. They know that we are not a dictatorship. They know that we are a republic. And that's why they're making those demands. The name Republic of Kenya is what the Gen Z are calling out. The national anthem, listen to it and listen to the Gen Z. That is it. They are being patriotic. So they don't need another human being to call them out. Article 3.
And to represent them.
Article 3 clause 1 is what the Gen Z are implementing. It says every person has the obligation to uphold, defend, and promote this constitution. That's the leader of the Gen Z. And no biological person can perform that. So when you say they're leaderless, I don't know what they mean, but their leadership for me, when I sit down and contextualize what's happening, I see them anchored on Article 3, Clause 1, where they have got a duty to implement the Constitution. And in Article 1, Clause 1, they know that they are the sovereign people who shall exercise their power according to the Constitution.
Directly now.
Directly, or may elect representatives. So then directly, Article 3 does not call on representatives. 3 clause 1. Article 3 clause 1 calls on each and every person to stand up and defend the Constitution. So when you tell me that people cannot go on the street to defend this Constitution, I don't know what you're saying. Not you're saying that the law has to be anchored in the Constitution, the Public Order Act, and many, many old acts. And it's a failure of Parliament to align them with the new Constitution. But they still exist in our statute. So it's very important that we make sure that the rule of law is a rule of law anchored in the Constitution, not anchored outside the Constitution.
You know, when you listen to the president, it's all about opportunists, goons taking over. He was on a road show on top of his vehicle, and he says, look, Ford Foundation is funding Gen Z protests. Says these are not our kids anymore. Someone has infiltrated. That is why the protests are as they are. From where you sit, do you look at opportunists in these protests?
It's very sad, but I have a very, very low opinion of Ruto. President Ruto is the kind of guy that if he looked into the mirror and the image he sees looking back at him, he will deny it's his image.
Oh, really?
He will say, I'm looking into this mirror and I'm seeing a fox. He will not say, I'm seeing Ruto. So I have a very low opinion of what Ruto says. So the man who has been telling lies to a point where he believes his own lies. So I don't think it's what. The simplest thing Ruto should have done is say, we are under the rule of law. These are the goons. They are being prosecuted. Yeah. These are the people committing the treason. They want to overthrow the government. They want to do whatever. We are prosecuting them for this. Not a single charge sheet containing the content, what the president keeps on saying, has been displayed in our courts of law. Instead, they are snatching innocent young people from the streets. They continue butchering them. They continue torturing them. But all these things will come back to haunt him. And I remember when he was in Korea, I told President Ruto, before you come back, look at how many presidents in South Korea have gone to jail. Because Ruto is going to jail.
Certain.
He will not escape it. He will not escape it. It may not happen today. But within 10 years, Ruto will be in jail. Yeah.
Based on everything that we've seen.
What is happening now and plus what he has done in the past. You know, there are footprints where we are. There are footprints where we are. It's not just by accident that we have got a government made of thieves for thieves by thieves. But the people are now beginning to ask, from 1963, what went wrong? Why did the rain begin beating us? That's the question Gen Z is asking. Why can't we have good governance? How come some people can live so large while others have nothing? And the same people who are living large are not inventors, are not known for any enterprise, they don't own any company or anything. They're just politicians or civil servants. They are surviving on our taxes. How come? That some of them are even now richer than the country in terms of balance sheet.
So you look at the situation now on the ground, every person is worried about Tuesdays and Thursdays. How long will this last? Way forward, because my conversation with you was obviously about the solution. What is the way forward? Ruto resigns, transition government, is that what you're telling Kenyans?
I'm saying a caretaker government. We need a caretaker government to come in. Not a government of national unity that Raila and others are trying to craft. A caretaker government, a government which is realized that it has come to power to discharge a certain function and with a limited timeline, with a limited mandate of organizing a new election. And also the elections being conducted according to the Constitution. Not elections being conducted in a manner that we don't understand where the law comes from. And so this transitional mechanism is what is required. Not an extension of the legitimacy of Ruto's power in government. ODM cannot grant Ruto legitimacy. That was taken away. Because they were also delegitimized. They were part of the parliament that was delegitimized.
Yes.
Yeah. So they cannot. So Wiper cannot. Who can? Azimio cannot. This thing has been delegitimized. The only thing to do is to have a transitional government, a caretaker government that will perform very limited functions,
Yes.
but whose members will be ineligible to contest in the next elections or in the next 2 elections.
Ineligible.
Yeah, so that we only get people of integrity, people who are statesmen coming into this transitional mechanism, not opportunists who will come in and think that they've got a platform to promote themselves. Anybody who will want to have a political life immediately after the transitional mechanism should not participate in that transitional mechanism.
You know, the conversation in the country is also about cabinet secretaries. The president is expected to forward the names. You're talking about a transitional government, but the president seems not to want to resign. He's going to will come still with names of cabinet ministers. What are your expectations of the people that will be appointed or names that will come out from the president?
I don't see any capacity for transformation under Ruto. We might have a lot of transactional activity, made some managerial improvements, but to transformative leadership under Ruto is impossible. He can improve the management of a few things, but to transform this country, he cannot.
It doesn't matter.
Because he is part of the same crop that believes the ordinary people have to be oppressed through corruption, through theft of public resources, through reward of relatives and cronyism, and through all those things for him to survive. He doesn't believe in universal emancipation. So he cannot be a transformative leader that this country is looking for. He can improve his management style and maybe reduce on the wastage, on the greed, on the corruption, but he cannot transform Kenya into the republic that the people aspire to have, into a government, into a state governed by law. Ruto has no capacity to do that, because if the law was to be applied, he would have to begin. Ruto will be the first person to go to jail. So Ruto cannot afford to have the rule of law in this country.
Because
he'll go to jail.
He'll be the first victim.
Yes, he is already having he has a hotel. Weston is sitting on public land. Weston is sitting on public land. He has been convicted of grabbing land or whatever. He would be disqualified to hold a public office under the Constitution of Kenya. So Ruto cannot deliver, cannot midwife the transition Kenyans want, because he will be the first victim. He will be the first person to go to jail under if the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is fully implemented.
I will not end the show by not asking a question that so many people have asked me. Are you the person to transform this country? Today in the morning, the 6th has been trending on X, and your photo is coming out. I don't know if you've seen posters, Okiya Omtatah for president. They're actually there.
I've not seen it, but the issue is, it's not about a messiah. It's not about an individual. It's not about the messiah. It's about the country agreeing that we must implement the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And if that is the agreement, it doesn't matter whether it's Omtatah or you who does it. We don't need a messiah. We already have the solution. We just need as a people, not to be blocked from realizing the promise of that Constitution and the clarion call in our national anthem. So, if it is me to drive that, so be it. If it is you to drive that, so be it. But the important thing is that we have a vehicle. We have a boat to deliver. We have a Noah's Ark to deliver us from the floods.
Yes.
Let us get into that ark.
Final message to Gen Zs, millennials who have put your name out there, and what you've been doing for them. Some of them didn't know when you started, going to courts, looking at the laws, saying this is unconstitutional, things are getting suspended because what you've done. But your final message to Gen Zs, millennials, and even Kenyans in large.
I'll just go to the Bible, the book of Genesis. We are told the story of creation and how we lost paradise. When God created the world and everything that was in it, it was good, and he put it under the dominion of human beings, Adam and Eve. But God never put Adam and Eve as lords over themselves. God told Adam and Eve, you'll obey the law. Thou shalt not do A, B, C, D. Now, when the devil came, the devil told Adam and Eve to disobey the law. And when they said yes to the temptation of the devil, they lost paradise. Right now, there's a temptation to the Gen Z that they don't demand for the rule of law, do something else. To me, I say no. It's the rule of law or nothing. So let us have the rule of law within our constitution, and the Gen Z should continue pressing for the constitution to be fully implemented. And for those who are in power, who are holding the instruments of power, must realize that they have got a unique opportunity to midwife that transition. And that opportunity is through a caretaker government, which can then create mechanisms for proper elections to be held, which are constitutional. Because when the election that we elected Ruto was unconstitutional, we had something called bombers, where they were tallying results and whatever. If you look at our constitution, Article 138 says that where there are two or more candidates are cleared to run for president, there shall be an election in each constituency. That's why the election for president happens and ends. And then Article Section 10 of the same Article 138 says the IBC shall declare the results. When you come to Article 86, Clause B and C, Clause B says the presiding officer shall count and tally the polls, we shall count the votes at the polling station and declare the results promptly. 2 says the returning officer shall collect and tally the results and declare announce the results. So the person who conducts the presidential election is the returning officer in the constituency. Should give us our certificate to say in this constituency the results were like this. In the next constituency they were like this. Then even you people in the media can collect these results and know who the winner is.
Wasn't that on the IBC portal what they were saying?
No. They were counting, they were telling what? They were doing the work of the returning officer because under the Act, the Elections Act, Parliament made another crime. They created the office, they created what they call the returning officer for the presidential election. The returning officer for the presidential election is the returning officer at the constituency. And the election happens there for the president. So the results must be declared at the constituency. Now, what the IBC chair does, and that's why Section 10 says, it declares. They get these results, and they just add them, and they declare. And what the returning officer has declared at the constituency can only be overturned through a court process. It cannot be overturned administratively after he signs that certificate. You see? So this subversion of the constitution is what brings confusion. Once you get to bombers, the portal begins running, it stops, then they are counting again, they are looking at the results from the polling stations. That's the work of the returning officer at the constituency. It should end at the constituency, and only the results of the constituency then are added. And then the other computations are done. Have you received the minimum requirements? 50% plus 1. Have you acquired at least 25% in more than half the counties? Then you are declared.
So what you're basically saying, even if we have a caretaker government, we have to tie in some loose nuts.
We must get the election. That's what I'm saying. We must implement the constitution. We cannot have a constitution saying your election is going to take place in the constituency, and you come and begin organizing an election in Boma, so you are doing tallying and doing all those things. There should be no bombers. They should, even now, like you, a media house, should be able to have 290 people in the constituencies. They call you, say, here, the returning officer has declared to the winner, these are the results, and you are doing your calculator. Then you can say, okay, from the way I'm seeing, we are calling these results for candidate A, not candidate B. And candidate B should be able to see that and say, okay, I've lost this thing. Even before it is declared, let me congratulate the other guy. Not that you are waiting for 7 days, as funny things are being done, you don't know who the winner is. It's only in Kenya where that is happening. Rwanda had an election the other day. The Electoral Commission has not formally announced the winner. But Kagame has been declared the winner by the media, by the fellow opponents, and others have considered. Because
they can see.
They were at the very level they were there. So the question of making it so mysterious after the vote is where the problems come in, and we are unable to get a legitimate leader, because even one has won legitimately, the kind of contestations and the questions that are asked deny him that legitimacy. So for me, what I'm saying is that the end game is that we implement the constitution fully through a caretaker government. Then we have the elections.
All right, that is Senator Okiya Omtatah says the rule of law or nothing. It's up for us Gen Zs, millennials, and Kenyans as a whole to ensure that the rule of law is followed in this country. Thank you so much for making time for us. It's always a pleasure to listen to you.
Thank you.
The conversation was supposed to be short, but it has been longer than we expected because, you know, when wisdom comes, Okiya the sixth, we have to listen to him. Okay, have yourself a lovely rest of your day. Have a great weekend.